was this really irritating headline that pretty much every national newspaper in the UK ran with when this story broke. And it was something like, husband abandons wife mid-Atlantic. And I remembered when I saw it, I thought, I bet that's the only thing I'm ever remembered for. And annoyingly, it's kind of turned out to be true, because this was 13 years ago now, and I'm still here talking about it. But the thing was that that's okay. I'm kind of got used to that now, because this journey changed everything for me. And so I'd go as far as to say, and I say this really lightly because I think Andrew had quite a hard time from the newspapers, Andrew getting off that boat is probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me. And let me explain what I mean by that. It's because it changed everything. I started life as a teacher, actually. That was the career path I'd chosen. But my father died at 58 and of cancer, and it was a real turning point. I was a few years into my teaching career, and I thought, wow, this life might be short. Am I really doing what I want to do? Am I really living my life to my full potential? And I knew I wasn't. I wanted to do what he'd done. He was an entrepreneur. And so I started setting up my first business when I was 24. And now we're up to number 3. And this journey has had the biggest impact on those businesses, because everything that could go wrong in these little rowing boats did go wrong, for me anyway. But it meant that I had endless opportunities to find ways to deal with really high-pressure situations and how to stay motivated during those challenging times. So let me explain what I mean by taking you on this journey with me, which really it started here, as we all lined up in the quayside in Tenerife to take part in this international rowing race, 3,000 nautical miles. And it wasn't just us, obviously, as you can see. There was a whole load of nutters out there who were prepared to go and do this. But at the time, it was so exciting because more people had been to the moon than had rowed across an ocean and survived. So there was this real unknown about what was going to happen. We all had identical kit boats. In fact, when they arrived, it looked like an IKEA wardrobe. It was just 24 sheets of marine plywood in a box. And we had to build this thing as part of the challenge. Everyone had 2 blokes in the boat except us. We were the only mixed-sex team. And I guess because of that, nobody really thought we were a particular threat to them in this race across the Atlantic. But I picked a really good partner in Andrew, because he's 6'5", he'd rowed for Great Britain. The problem was that I'd never rowed before. But I had done a lot of kind of adventures, expeditions, so I felt like that was the bit that I brought to the team, and that was the right combination of skills, his rowing and my expedition adventure experience, that would allow us to win this race. It had taken 4 years to plan and prepare and just to get to this moment on the quayside. So when that gun finally went and we set out, it was so exciting, to finally be out there. And there was this incredible moment when we were rowing along, and of course you row backwards, so I was looking over my shoulder at this long, flat horizon line, and all I could think was, wow, that is it. That's all I'm going to see now for what we thought was going to take about 6 weeks. But this is really where it all went wrong. And it's partly because this nice flat line, it didn't stay very flat for very long. And we had this massive storm on the first night, literally waves breaking on top of our heads. We had no control of this vessel at all. And we made 2 massive discoveries that night. The first really was about me, and it was that I absolutely loved it out there. It was like the bigger the waves got, the more I loved it. I had this pathetic grin on my face the whole time. I remember thinking at one point, I was born for this challenge. But the other discovery was about Andrew, and what we found out was that Andrew suffers from what's like a really crippling phobia of open ocean. I know what you're thinking. It's a really unfortunate time to have discovered this, But we made this ridiculous mistake by doing all of our training on the River Thames in London, and that just hadn't prepared us for what this was going to be like. It was our first time out of sight of land. And although I recognise it sounds really comical, until you're out there in a tiny little wooden rowing boat, in the pitch black, with waves landing on your head, you just don't know how you're going to respond to that kind of situation. And it turned out that Andrew couldn't respond at all. And what started very much as a psychological problem very quickly became a physical problem. And by the end of the first week, I found Andrew in the cabin and he was slipping in and out of consciousness. And I suppose at that moment I felt I had no other option than to call on a satellite phone and arrange for them to come and rescue us.